Hi everyone! Today I'm going to take a few minutes to walk you through some great reports in Renaissance. At this point in the year, our students have taken their second STAR reading and STAR math assessments, so we can use this data primarily to focus on their growth. So the first step is to access Renaissance through ClassLink. While your STAR data is accessible in Unify as well, I find the Renaissance reports to be more comprehensive and detailed. So you're going to go ahead and select the R icon, which will take you to Renaissance. From here, your focus will be either STAR Reading if you're in the ELA department, or STAR Math if you're in the Math department. So for the sake of this tutorial, I will use STAR Reading reports, but please note that the reports are the same for either content area. As a quick refresher from our first training back in September, I would like to briefly review the diagnostic and the screening report. Then after, we will learn about the Student Growth Report, or SGP, which is our main focus for this testing window. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on Reports. So at this point, when I'm looking at the screen, I notice all the reports listed here. Like I said, we're definitely going to look at this growth report, but first I just want to take a second and review diagnostic and screening report with you. So I'm going to go ahead and click on diagnostic. When I get to this screen, as the teacher, I have a lot of options. So I can either pick a certain student, I can select an entire class. For the sake of this example, I'll just go ahead and I'll pick on this language arts class. And then as I scroll down, everything else should be pretty set. You want to make sure that your benchmark is listed as Florida FSA, and then these are options that you can choose to have listed on the report if you want. At that point, you would click View Report, and it would generate the report for you. Of a student diagnostic report, you'll notice that my report has big black rectangles covering the screen. I did that to protect the student's information. Obviously, your report is going to have their identifying information listed. So when I look at the student diagnostic report, the first thing I notice in the right-hand corner is the test date, so I can make sure that I'm looking at the most recent test. I can also look at the test time, so I can see if I feel that the student maybe rushed through the test, didn't take enough time, that might factor into my analysis of the student data. And look at the STAR reading scores. So I see the scaled score and the associated level. Then I see the percentile rank, the grade equivalent, and the instructional reading level. Then I get down into the domain score, and this section is helpful because it breaks the assessment down into different domains, so you can see exactly where the student is maybe most proficient and least proficient. And that pretty much sums up the student diagnostic report, which is the same report that we looked at back in September when our students first tested. Now I would like to draw your attention to another report that we looked at back in September, and that would be the screening report. So I'm going to go ahead and click on screening. And this report is helpful if I want to get a snapshot of a particular class or an entire grade level. So for example, if I were to select grade 6, the screen takes a second to refresh. Then I want to make sure that I've clicked on winter because I want to see how our students performed on this second assessment. Once again, it takes a second to refresh. If I wanted to look at certain levels, I could select it and the report will only show me the students in that level. But if I want to go ahead and see all the levels, I wouldn't check anything and it automatically will show me all the levels. Once again, I want to make sure my benchmark is set to Florida FSA, and all of this is optional. Once everything looks good, you'd go ahead and you would click View Report. Screening report, and I went ahead and I'm looking at grade 6. For this particular report, I actually ended up selecting a specific class that I wanted to look at. So once again, I can check to make sure I'm in the right reporting period by looking up here in the right-hand corner. And then as I scroll down, it just shows me the students that I have in each level. And if I scroll down a little bit more, it shows me that this class has a total of 10 students in it, 8 of which are less than proficient and 2 of which are proficient. So I can use this report once again, to get a general view of each class. And then the following pages actually break the data down by each student, but I'm not going to go on that page right now because it still has the students' information displayed. Now let's talk about the moment we've all been waiting for. We're going to go ahead and focus on the SGP, or the Student Growth Percentile. In just a moment, I'm going to explain exactly what that is, but first, I just want to let you know that you can access the SGP, or Student Growth Percentile, by either selecting the Growth Report, which we'll look at in just a minute, or the Growth Proficiency Chart. Both of them are really great reports to look at, and they give you really good information. And I'm going to select growth. And once again, I can select a specific class. I can click on students and I can pick out certain students. And most of this information you're going to leave just as it is. Once you've got everything the way you like it, you're going to go ahead and select View Report. First, I wanted to take a moment to explain what the SGP, or Student Growth Percentile, really means. So the best way to do this might be to use an example. So let's pretend that I have a student whose SGP is 46. What this means is that the student grew as much or more than 46% of her academic peers. So we can define academic peers as being peers in the same grade level with a similar starting score and a similar performance history. Now, when looking at your student's SGP, the SGP for typical growth is 35 to 65, meaning that you ideally would want your students to at least fall in that range. The range, once again, is 35 to 65. Now, SGP scores are updated overnight, so they will not be available immediately after a student test. You're going to need to check back the next day. I've decided to select a specific student. So when I look at the student's report, I see their SGP. I also see their scaled score, and it's comparing it from their September test to their December test. So it's almost like a pre-test and a post-test. So something interesting about this particular report, and it's something that you might not notice very frequently, but it could pop up, so I want to be able to explain it to you. You might see that their student growth percentile falls within that range. Remember, they want to be somewhere between 35 and 65. So this student has an SGP of 46, which is great. But I might go, why does this student have an SGP of 46 when they've decreased? Their scaled score went down from September to December. And so I might be a little confused as to how it could show growth when their scaled score seems to have gone down. And an answer to this can be found in the other report that I want to show you right now, which is the Growth Proficiency Chart. So let's go ahead and take a look at that, and that will help us see why their SGP is good, but their scaled score went down just a bit. On the class that student is in, and then I found that student's dot on the chart. And when I pull up this student's information, I notice that the SGP is not just taking in consideration the scores from September and December, but it's also taking into consideration a prior score back in May, so last school year. So when this student started, the student scored a 609 scaled score. Then in September, the student jumped to 841, and then in December, the student went to 769. So even though the student dropped slightly from September to December, when I compare December's score to the very first score that we have from May, I notice that there's still improvement. There's still growth. So the SGP doesn't just take into consideration the first test to the second, but it's taking into consideration all of the assessment data that we've collected on that particular student. So that might explain why you see perhaps a drop in the scaled score, but they're still showing growth. My report screen, and I'm going to go ahead and click on Growth Proficiency Chart. So now I get to my Growth Proficiency Chart, and I went ahead and I have 6 classes assigned to me. And it's going to put all my classes on this proficiency chart. And remember, our range we want to be is about 35 to 65. So I can see that some of my classes are definitely falling in that range. I even have a few classes above that range, and I have a couple that are below that range. So what I can do is I can click on a specific class, and I can view the students in that class. This is now going to conclude our tutorial on how to access certain reports in Renaissance. Once again, remember, any reports that we looked at in reading also apply to math. If you need more assistance, I'm going to provide links to some tutorial videos through Renaissance. Those videos in total run about 40 minutes, so I was hoping that I could consolidate the information into this tutorial for you. But if you want more information, I highly recommend going to those videos as well. You can also seek me out anytime, and I would be happy to sit with you and go through these reports together. Once again, I hope you found the tutorial session informative and helpful, and seek me out anytime that you need help. Thank you.